this video, I'm going to show you a couple techniques that you can use to improve your slapping technique, which if you've never seen before, looks sort of something like this. So essentially, the slapping technique that you see is basically broken down into two chunks. So I'll zoom in to show you. There's the slap, in which you are using the side of your thumb to make the string vibrate. Which gives you a very percussive sound. The second part is known as the pop, where you take one of your fingers, in this case my index finger, reach under one of the other strings, and pick it. When you combine the two, it sounds like this. And since your hand is essentially just alternating between your thumb and your index finger, or whatever other finger you choose to use, you can quickly shake your hand back and forth. You can get a lot of speed out of this technique. So, what are some of the important things about slapping? First, you want to make sure that when you bring your thumb down in the slap, you don't leave your thumb on the string after it starts vibrating. Otherwise, you'll just get a dead note that sounds like this. Which isn't what you want. Or maybe it is, but usually it's not what you want. So instead, as soon as your thumb touches the string, you immediately want to pull it back. Compare that to this. And when you first start out with slapping, one of the hardest things is trying to get only one string to vibrate on the slap. Because, I don't know about you, but my thumb is very wide. So when I first started, I was often getting a lot of strings vibrating at the same time. And that does sound cool and it is very useful, but you should also be able to isolate single notes with your thumb. There isn't a whole lot of secret technique behind this. You just got to practice. But one thing that I started off with that made it really easy for me to gradually build up that technique was to start by having the open E string and then 7 on the A string, which is an octave above. Then you aim just to hit the E string, but then if your thumb spills over onto the other strings, you won't really hear them as much because it's just an octave above. You can use that to develop different rhythmic patterns. And then from there, once you're comfortable with that, you can move the other finger around to different notes to try to develop some more complicated melodies. With the same idea being that it doesn't really matter all that much if your thumb strikes the other strings. Another technique that you can do is just make a simple power chord. And use either one or both of the fingers that are making the power chord to dampen the strings that you don't want to play. So, once you've developed a little bit of technique and speed, one thing you can try doing to give yourself a nice interesting sound is to go back to using big chords with slapping. And instead of using just one finger for the popping, you can use multiple fingers. In this case, I'll be slapping with just my thumb, and then on my way up, I'll just grab a bunch of strings with these 3 fingers here and see what I get. but then work on alternating between thumb and one finger, but have that one finger travel up and down the strings. You can use this to develop a lot of speed and to spit out a whole lot of notes that you probably wouldn't be able to do with just alternating picking. Some musicians that have used slap in the past, mostly bassists, because this was a technique that was developed for bass. You'll find the Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, Les Claypool from Primus are very prominent slap bassists. I don't know a whole lot of guitarists that incorporate slap in their technique. Maybe Dave Matthews on occasion, and Daniel Gildenlow from Pain of Salvation. So if you search for those videos, maybe you'll find something you like. Otherwise, just start slapping away.